Morning to you guys. I hope you are doing well. Get a little early start today. Wanted to show you guys some shaping skills, and had a student of mine send me over some pics. Wanted to say, hey, look, my nails, I'm doing them short and square, active length. How do I get them like really straight? How do I get them really tight? So I'm going to show you guys how you're going to be able to achieve it, the steps that you have to take in order to get it perfect. This is going to really make sense for you guys who have customers that wear active length, like them square. I'll show you guys what to do. All right, so what I did is I went ahead and removed the shine from the surface of the nail already. I just want to kind of clean that surface off. Let me just kind of round off that edge. And then what we're going to end up doing is using protein bond right through the surface. I'm just going to go ahead and apply a couple of coats. All right, prepped and ready to go. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to stay within those growth channel parameters. All right, so I don't need to build a super long free edge. I'm going to go ahead and take my form. I'm going to place it underneath the nail just like this, right? Flush, you can see how tight that is. And then let's go ahead and work with cherry blossom. It's one of the colors that are going to be in larger sizes for the sale next week. I went ahead and got myself one of these. That way you guys can see it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to build a free edge that's going to be tight. And it's really important that when we submerge our brush, we have to be able to get a free edge that we're going to be able to mold really straight to those edges, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bead. I'm going to basically take my brush, remove, you can see the pressure that I'm using back here to remove, I'd say about half of the liquid, bounce, like maybe a couple. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a lot of the liquid so that we get kind of a matte finish. Now, when I set this to the surface, I'm going to go ahead and set this down. All right, I need to get it to those edges. So how I'm going to get this straight, I'm going to use the body of my brush and I'm going to walk this from the top, and I really need to focus on trying to keep this dead straight. You can see how tight this is, how straight that is. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to walk this all the way to the top, and I'm going to try to get this as even to the sides as I possibly can, okay? I'm not concerned about the tip right now. I'm just really concerned about the sides. You could see how straight that is all the way down. Now what I can do is I could use like the side of my brush and just kind of square that off. And I'm just gonna really kind of square that off. And then that way what we have is a really square free edge, okay? So you can see I have my tip, the form like pinched, right? But you can see that the very front of the nail is extremely square, right? And that's what we want to be able to keep, okay? So now at this point, since I have that built out, let's go ahead and sculpt the nail. I need to get myself a large enough bead so it's going to self-level. So get a lot of liquid. I'm trying to keep everything inside the camera. I'm going to get a lot of liquid. I'm going to bounce. Watch the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then around 5, I slowly start to set this down. I can start using the tip of my brush to walk around the perimeter of the nail. Everything is going to start slowly running down to the edges. I'm going to use the tip of my brush, kind of guide it down, start pulling from the front and the sides, right? Pulling down from the sides and the front. I don't need to touch the upper arch. Allow the upper arch to kind of flow into shape. There's going to be really a lot of product here. So as I start to kind of guide it into place, it really starts to fill in quite well. Then I could use the body of the brush just to kind of manipulate that shape, kind of guide it into place, start slowly pulling it in. Since we're doing an active length nail, I'm not going to really need a ton of product right at the tip. You can see I'm really just kind of balancing everything, and I'm using very, very light pressure as I'm working around, right? And like you can see, I take the tip of my brush, I'm just kind of guiding around the edges. And then as everything starts to set, I could start to really use the bottom end of my brush to just get that nice and even from side to side. Boom. That is going to be how we're going to establish a really, really active length square nail, all right? So at this point right here, all right, we're going to allow this to dry. Okay, so you can see just from the sculptured nail that my sides are extremely straight here, my lower arches as well, as I brought that all the way down. You can see if I kind of line this at its side, I'm not going to really need a lot of filing at the lower arch. It's really built out quite square from the very, very edge of the nail all the way to that extension. And then even the very, very tip, right? What you could always remember, like if I'm looking down the barrel of the nail and it's like, well, I don't have a lot of product there, I'm probably missing. How much product would I need to add to that corner? Well, what you would do is literally, you would take just the very, very tip of your brush. I don't need a lot. Dab off that excess. I would set it right there just to fill that space. Allow it to self-level. Like literally just wait a couple of seconds and then just kind of pat that into place. I don't need to brush anything. And then it's just set and ready to go. Now all we have to do is we have to allow that to set and dry, okay? So while we're letting that dry, there's a couple things that you have to understand before we start filing this into perfection. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of draw this out for you on the towel so that you have a really good understanding on what we want to be able to build out. All right, so we've really built out this nail, right? And it's imperative to know that, like, if you're doing any sort of shaping, your hand file has to be like, so if this sidewall was bulging out slightly, right? And let's say like you sculpted this and this edge is a little bit wide right there. In order to get it really, really square, we have to make sure that we file these sides really, really like straight. So in order for you to do that, you have to make sure that your file is not just lined up, right? I'm not going to hold my file like this. I have to hold my file like this so that I could be putting pressure inside right here. And then what I want to be able to do is it's almost like a sawing motion, and I'm filing in and I'm filing in until that gets really dead straight. And then on the opposite side, it's going to be the same thing. My thumb is putting a lot of pressure on the inside of the file, and I'm starting from this point and I'm filing in all the way until it gets really, really square here. And then from the front, my file has to be straight. If I'm tapering it, giving it a squoval look, right, where my edges are round, right? So if you're looking at the side, it's tapered, right? That, you know, it's the free edge is tapered. It's not going to be dead square. That's when you would angle your file at the edge. But if I want to keep it dead straight, I have to keep my file really, really straight to the edge so that I file this free edge extremely straight right here, right? So this is getting to a point where I know it's starting to mold. The free edge is starting to dry. So one of the things you can do is you could always get wooden dowels if you wanted to, and you can see, like, I could run it underneath and we can get that as square as we possibly can. I don't want to push it in too much because I don't want to kind of bulge those edges in. I'm working with plastic, so I have a limit that I'm able to work with, right? Normally, if it was a natural nail, you can put a lot of pressure right here in your side, and then that way, you know, as you're pushing down at an angle, what you're going to be able to do is you're really going to be able to kind of square off the edges and pinch that natural shape into form. All right, so as it starts to dry, what we want to be able to realize is that, right, we have to keep this dead square. So I have to keep my hand file attached to the whole entire side, right? So we build a really, really flat, straight ledge that's going to go from this point all the way to the top. You can see how square that becomes here on this side as well. Since I already sculpted it, I don't have to worry about kind of layering my file at any high points. I'm keeping contact all the way through, you can see that ledge that I'm building, keeping contact all the way through so that that sidewall becomes really, really square. I have to make sure that my hand file stays attached to both sides. And then even the front, right, you can see how, right, I'm really keeping this dead square here. You're going to notice you're going to notice when you're filing, oops, sorry, hold on, let me just reattach my finger, just bent it off. So what you're going to notice is that, like, when it's here, right, this is where you're going to be able to tell, you know, by lining up your file. You can see, like, it's like there, here from the client profile, you could see there's a little bit of space right there in the corners. If I'm keeping contact with the whole entire top end, then I'm really going to be able to kind of square off that tip, right, to make it like really, really, really sharp, right? And this is not as some of the shapes I've seen. It's like a lot shorter than this, but I'm just showing you guys, like, if you want to try to get that shape, this is where it starts, right? You don't have to worry about the upper arch. Is not going to be hard to file. Even that lower arch right there, you can see that the lower arch extends from that corner out. So all this is hanging. If I take my hand file and I line this up at the lowest point, you see, parallel to the finger, and what I want to do is I want to file up, right? So start at that lowest point, and then as I start to file up, you're going to notice that eventually it's going to reach that corner, and I'm going to really try to build as straight of a lower arch as I possibly can. One of the things I like to do is I like to turn the hand to the side so that I could see it. It's a lot easier to do this. It's a lot easier to turn the hands to the side so that you're able to achieve perfection while you're working. Like all that stuff that's hanging from that point, you're going to notice that if I line this up and I file up and into that corner, right, then I'm going to be able really to just get my edges, like you can see, really straight off the side. Really straight off the side. Oops, sorry. And then, everything hasn't changed. Everything has stayed really, really square. And then what I can end up doing is I can file the upper arch in by using I don't have a lot of filing to do, right? I just have to really touch up that top end. You can see there's not a lot of filing. If I'm looking down the barrel of the nail, right, you can see that thickness right there, and then I can really kind of taper in that thickness down the tip to just make sure that everything is perfect. I didn't pinch the nail. I didn't pinch it. I don't have a lot of C-curve because, again, I'm working on plastic, so it's completely different. And then around the cuticle area, I just have to kind of reduce the level of thickness. That's all I'm trying to do with my E-file. I'm reducing the level of thickness that I have on the perimeter. So from this point here, now it's all just tune-up, right? I'm just really trying to square off that tip, give it that active length, keeping contact with the sides. Around the perimeter, I'm really kind of getting it nice and flush. Around the perimeter, no ledges, right? Ledges lead to lifting, so we don't want ledges around the perimeter, right? And then following through so that everything is perfect. And then as you can see, I mean, literally at this point, right, it's like, okay, how do I square this off? How do I make those edges like really, really, really tight, really, really square on both sides? You know, and I could have built... I noticed this on this nail right here, just this edge is slightly in, but it's still really, really square, and that's the most important thing. You want to be able, again, contact through the whole entire side.